Hello, and thank you for attending today's session on PPAP document authoring software demo. PPAP's been adopted by a lot of industries, and a lot of industries are still using spreadsheets for document authoring. And when I say document authoring, I mean the process flow, PFEMA, control plans, gauge studies, and the like. And what I want to show you today is a tool that was developed by a group of volunteers that have been using spreadsheets for some of them up to 30 years. Some housekeeping. First of all, we have a great mix of people today. And it's a mix of the high-level executives that I'm glad to see they're attending, and a lot of people, some of who I've spoke with already, that are in large OEMs, tier ones and smaller ones. There are attachments you can download right now during the presentation. There's a flyer on the solution, and probably most importantly, an example PPAP requirements document if you go out and looking for software. I'm going to spend a little time as an intro, and then we'll get right into the software. We're hoping that the people on today's call already understand the PPAP process, and probably more importantly, the level of effort that it takes to create, submit, maintain, and author PPAP submissions. So the session is for people that are planning on or currently trying to implement PPAP. And as most of you probably already know, PPAP is showing up in purchase orders. This is a must-do process. It's not really an option. And we're going to talk about the common issues and challenges that companies face trying to do that, why they're facing them, and some ideas on how to support them. Regardless of the industry you're in, the goal is rapid defect reduction throughout the supply chain. And PPAP's intended to do that. But we also need a way to simplify and standardize the requirements, minimize the cost to both the customers that are asking for it and the suppliers submitting it. Move from just kind of data stuck in spreadsheets into an analytical database that can help with better decisions, and maximize the return on investment. And when I say the return on investment, we'll talk about that. The whole why bother, if we're going to reduce defects and labor savings, a lot of people are not seeing the ROI. The PPAP process is, the time to create it is cumbersome, submitting it is cumbersome, but the last bullet on this slide is probably the most important, is all the stuff we're doing, all the time and money spent on PPAP, is it working? Are we seeing defects down? Now, just as a quick side note, a lot of accounts are simply satisfying the investment in a tool like this from labor savings. I helped a bulk material supplier that was doing 1,800 PPAPs a year, each taking hours and hours to create, down to 2 standard PPAP submission family groups. And it's interesting because their first reaction is, our customers won't accept this. And I said, well, have them call me if there's any issues. I haven't received a call from them yet. So the state of the art in this whole PPAP, if you want to call it digitization, is either spreadsheets or highly engineered tools. Spreadsheets, the first response is people love them because I can do whatever I want with them. And then they say, but boy, there's a lot of problems and mistakes with it, broken links between control plans and FMEAs, sorting errors, even things as simple as spelling errors. And then the highly engineered ones, these are really good tools for your design engineers. But what I've experienced in working with people that are executing it at the part manufacturing level, it's just too complex. The part guys don't think the same way as design people. So, is there a simpler, easier way to do it? The other thing for the executives on today's call, a lot of executives think that we've already digitized PPAP because we put it into a project management tool. And 80% of the effort is, what's the PPAP submission status? Versus all the time and effort spent in authoring these documents. And here's the twist. if you're just focusing on project management and you miss a deadline, that's a bummer. I mean, nobody wants to miss deadlines. But if you mess up the document authoring, there's risk you didn't identify, or there's risk you did identify, but you can't find them. That's where recall, warranty, and all the dollars happen. So the idea then being is, how do we support everyone? The volunteers were very adamant about, they wanted something better than spreadsheets, but not too complex. And by too complex, the highly engineered PLM tools, or some of the QMS software companies have some highly engineered tools as well. Keep it simple. A better document authoring tool, more than just project management. And then the integration, of course, that Harrington offers, for part information, we'd like to connect to an ERP or PLM, provide a better tool to get it done. For operations, some people have tried to put in routers, but a router really isn't a process flow. We can talk about that if you're interested in learning more. And for project management, the smaller the company, the less project management they need. Now, again, they said, if you make it too complex, we're going back to spreadsheets. So what we're going to talk today about, or demo for you, is a proven Microsoft Azure app that's been developed, again, by volunteers that are trying to make a better solution. In one of the conversations I had this week, when we got done with the demo, the person on the call said, this is really a PPAP communication platform. And I went, wow, communication, collaboration, and engagement, all the things we want, but cannot do when people are doing the best they can with spreadsheets. So let's take a look at this and see what you think. This is the app. And again, you'll see from that diagram the same tabs: a part file, a project file, a gauge study file. You also see that it kind of looks like Excel. Remember, people using Excel designed this, so they wanted to be able to move columns around. They wanted to be able to filter on columns. If I'm just looking for a particular one. So a lot of spreadsheet-like capability. And the reason we found that helpful is the people using spreadsheets get to understand it and see it quicker. So let's pick on one of these parts, a fuel manifold block. The software does not require a lot. The required fields are an asterisk. Part number, part name, again, this could come out of the ERP or PLM. The status of the part, the suppliers that we're buying it from, the customers we're submitting it to. And one last one, probably the most important, was that all the activity is driven by part number and rev level. And the reason for that is one of the volunteers said, I have the same part number at 3 different versions going out to 3 different customers. 3 different customers. And he said, it's just difficult to kind of keep track. Our folders was by part number, or if it's by customer, it's just hard to do it. So they wanted the ability to put that together. Then the idea was product characteristics, the ability to get those into the app easy. Most of them said that they had some kind of tool that could get them into Excel, or in some cases there were interns or co-op students but they wanted the ability to quickly take it, hit this up arrow. You'll see that up arrow a lot throughout the system, and the ability to quickly get the characteristics in there. So a very easy way to get started. Process characteristics, the same idea. The ability to cut and paste those and bring them in easy. You can attach the file too if you don't want to cut and paste. This is showing that the class isn't specified, so they want an error on that we can fix. These are all developed by you. There's some standard ones loaded from various industries, but whatever terms you want to use is up to you. Now, the last one here is the idea of operations. I'm not going to load operations yet because the tool has a product family capability that says if I have a bunch of similar parts and they vary only a little bit by dimensions, I want to have a reusable family that I can put together for that. So we'll show you that. So other things, attachments, whether it's drawings, ECN documents, any other collateral that you want available to the tool, to the people using the tool is available as well. So if we go into projects, again, this is where we have the ability to bring over the information from the file. It starts with tasks. Now, task was interesting because a lot of people were frustrated with and didn't want to have to do all the Microsoft project type stuff. And again, this depends on how complex your thing is, but you can define all the checklists that you use. Customer A wants 18 elements, customer B wants 24, customer C wants 18. You can set up exactly how they want it built and put in. So we'll just go ahead and load just kind of a standard template. This can also be copied from previous projects. A lot of flexibility in how you get these in. But once they're in there, again, depending on the size of the company, this table may be okay. And again, you'll see the spreadsheet-like interface where it's showing just a columns that people are used to, and the ability to assign responsibility. Now, anyone who is assigned a responsibility in the project gets an email saying you've been assigned a project in this task. And the ability to see, do you want a full Gantt chart? Do you want just a % complete, or do you want nothing? Again, however works best for you to use it. Now, here's the heart of the tool. This is the essence of what people are trying to figure out and what they can do. It comes loaded with the AIG 4th edition and AIG VDA editions for the tools. Again, these can be customized and set up to any way you want. We'll show you that in a minute. But this is where if I go into the process FEMA and I want to leverage a common library, I can hit the library books. So this is now where you set up the various tools that are repeatable. This is how you add rows to it. You put in a couple, up 20, up 30. So you get the idea of it. Now, here's the big thing that people are concerned about, the volunteers. We'll come back to this in a minute. And here's the process flow. So up 10, 20, 30. And you can see different versions of how you want that laid out. Here's the PFEMA, 10, 20, 30. And then here's the control plan, 10, 20, 30. Now, when the volunteers are going through this, say, sometimes we're out either talking with a supplier or working with our shop, and there was something that we wanted to add just as a note. And they said, like put it in the op 15. So I'll go ahead and add one. We'll put in op 25. Special note. I'm going to spell that wrong. It does have real-time spell checking, which people were very happy to see. So what we did was we just added an operation in the control plan. And I was at an event down at Cape Canaveral with a group of auditors. And they just smiled and said, oh, the first place we go is look at process flows, FEMAs, and control plans, because there's always problems there. So what they were trying to resolve was, once they understood, the volunteers, that these are not three different spreadsheets, they are not three different tabs in the spreadsheet, it's a database, they asked to see this one. And this view is showing all the information across all the forms. And once they understood that, they went in and said, well, wait a minute, this special note, it's really not part of the FEMA or the control plan. So they wanted the ability, not breaking the link because they see it's in the database, but not to display it, perhaps in the process flow or PFEMA. So there's complete control over the data model about what you can see, what you can't see, and how that works. So if I go into the process flow, you'll see 25 is missing, or not missing, but hidden. 25 is hidden in the PFEMA, but you'll see it show up in the control plan. So a lot of capability in how to put those together. The other one that was really important to the team is they said, you know, the right side of the PFMEA, where we're supposed to do all the improvement effort, they said it doesn't work. I mean, we put stuff in there, but the spreadsheets, you know, somewhere that in most cases we can't find. We just wanted the ability to go through and say, look at machine vision to improve detection. Assign it to somebody. Again, they'll get an email that they've been assigned that. What's the target completion date? What's the status? And then again, the results afterward. Now that seems kind of simple, but it brings the right side of the FMEA to life. And by bringing it to life, we now have the ability to go in and say, show me all the actions, show me just my actions. And then when they saw how this was coming together, they said, wait a minute, I got project team actions, I got FMEA actions, I need this action tab. So the action tab shows you all the tasks that are assigned to you and all the FMEA tasks that are assigned to you. And, you know, of course, you can sort by start date, you can sort by priority, and click on any of these records and go directly back into the record. Over here, I can go one click away just back into the forms that we were looking at. The other capability, if you want to use them, there's meetings capability, kickoff meetings, meeting with vendors. One of the customers that are using it came to us and said, you know, we've been using web meetings with our suppliers because of the COVID activity, and we record them all. So now we have the ability to place those recordings as a record into the meeting notes to say, this is what we did. You can also have team members. They can be your customers, reps that are in it. They can be, of course, your employees or supplier contacts. And then the history tab is where we go through and we look at when it was created, what activity was done, how it was changed, when it was changed. So a complete change history of it. And then the last part of it was gauge studies. And it was interesting because a lot of the volunteers were using gauge studies or were doing gauge studies in Minitab, which by itself was relatively expensive, but that's all they had to do it with. So they wanted to go through and look at it in such a way to make it part of this, but they also wanted a library that they can reuse the studies. You don't have to do a study on a 0 to 1 micrometer on every half-inch ID. If you make a bunch of parts like that, you can reuse them. But the thing when I mentioned Minitab was interesting. One of the customers came and said, my supplier quality engineer at the customer called me and said, thank you for these updated reports because they're short, concise, and tell me exactly what I'm trying to do. The gauge system needs improvement. Gauge discrimination is low. So ease of data entry, ease of reporting, and again, a reusable library that you can put things together. That's the tool in a nutshell. There's some configuration that can be done. It's optional. You don't have to. You can fire this thing up, start entering information like you would in Excel. building things on the fly. You can start with the PFMEA, start with the control plan, start wherever you want. Again, it's all in a database now, so it doesn't matter your internal process. You can integrate your customer files, supplier files, part files. You can do single sign-on with employees. And there's a whole bunch of lookup tables that let you go through and build things. Now, one quick note back into the ad. Those are all under the wrench in the admin section. This is where all these things are built, including that reusable library that we put together. So this is where you can go in and build information that's used across multiple families. The ability to build once, use forever. And yes, there's change control. If I change the family template, it asks you, do you want to update the submission? It does not do it automatically because you may have already submitted that and got it approved and you don't want to change it. And the other way around, you can change it to part level and bring it up that way as well. The other capability that's important is in templates. I mentioned there's standard ones that come with it. But here's an example that we went in and simplified the headings. This was with a client that liked how it worked. So, the original text is potential failure mode. They wanted to say what could go wrong. The original potential effect of the failure, what could happen. And again, you can change these. And the main reason they started it was the ability that this customer has this form, this customer has this form, this customer has this form, the ability to build one that sorts all. Now, once you build that, if I go back into the project and go back into the forms, I can now go through and toggle. We'll put in the simplified example. And when we go into the FMEA, you're now going to see the simplified headings. Now, again, the client that started to do this said it improved their ability to communicate internally, it improved their ability and effectiveness of the software, but it also allowed them to have a single system internally that they train on, teach on, and develop. And then when it comes to submission time, the ability to toggle back to a customer-specific form or industry form with all their wordings and headings. So a lot of flexibility in how they're built and put together. The other templates that I mentioned you can go in is the task template library. Again, this is where you can go in and say, this is for this customer, this is for this customer, this is for this customer. However they vary, we can tag and use that. So we're always going after the specific information for the client. So again, these are optional. You don't have to do it. But the more time you spend thinking about putting it together and building it, the easier it is long term. This slide I just added because, quality, 4.0 stuff is coming around all the time. 4.0 this, 4.0 that. But for PPAP software, right now, the majority of the industry, regardless of market, aerospace, medical device, consumer products, what have you, is working on Excel. So to get to 2.0, we just need to get into a database. And a lot of good things happen when we get into the database. For 3.0, that's where you start getting single sign-on, integration, analytics that aren't even possible with the standalone spreadsheets. And then 4.0 is when we get into the machine learning and all that. So the integration challenge, again, that Harrington's working on is the ability to put together this PPAP authoring tool connected with your ERP, connected with QMS, connected with your portals. And again, a very easy way to execute and bring those together. Harrington is a Microsoft shop, so we're using all the Microsoft Power Platform. It has a lot of pre-built APIs with other software like SAP. When it comes to analytics, if you've got a bunch of parts coming from a bunch of suppliers, you've got billions and billions lines of records or rows of records and spreadsheets. But we got to find a better way to put the data to work. So once we get into the database, We now can gain insights, make better decisions. Show me it by customer, show it to me by part number, by supplier, by location. The right side of the FMEA. We did this. Did it reduce the RPN? Did it reduce the risk? And where it really hits on this slide is that cost of defects. When we connect failure costs to what we put in the FMEA and these documents, that's where we start to see, is it, are we getting the return on the PPAP submission? So occurrence, we put it as a 1. It hardly happens all the time. But when we went over and connected it to the failure cost, it's like, wow, that happened 13 times last week. Detection, we thought we had great detection, but it's being discovered by the customer, not us. Failure modes, the ability to start saying, hey, have we seen this before? Or do we know what the defect is? Can we error? I mean, all these things that quality engineers have been wanting to do forever, again, comes to life. So the PPAP document authoring is available today from Harrington. We can do the integration, customization. It can be on-premise or hosted. And if you're interested in learning more, we'd like to schedule a time to do that. Now, there's one thing that, and this is something you can download today. If the download's not working in your screen, send me an email, I'll send it to you. But the idea of a requirements document, here's why I'm talking about this. I've seen some ridiculous requirements documents. I mean, sometimes it's almost like people are looking for a reason not to do anything. It's important to define in scope and out of scope. Harrington recommends baby steps, shoot for a low cost improvement versus a multi-million-dollar project. And need versus want is critical. Need, I have to have it. Want would be nice. And what's interesting, when we talked at the beginning about various people involved, who you ask this question, what role they're doing will change. Are they the project managers? Are they executioners? Are the authors of the tool? A little bit about Harrington. Harrington has been around for a long time, since 1991, with over 45,000 customers using the software. Again, we focus on the ability to get the tools and information you're looking for. Let's see if we got any questions coming in. First one is, what if we already have an ERP QMS app that's supposed to do this? The most important thing, and I can't tell from who asked the question, is what role you are in the executive team. But this has happened over and over. The executive's perception is that we already have computerized this, and this being PPAP. And what they've done in most cases is put it into a project management tool, focusing again on 80% of the effort is focused on project management, not where you get the ROI in document authoring. Here's what I recommend. The first time this happened to me, and it's repeated several times afterwards, is I said, can I talk to the people that are doing this process? And when I talked to them, they said, oh, we do it all in Excel and we upload it into ERP afterwards. So again, perception was we've already done it all. The actuality was they're still doing it in Excel. And a similar question about, we already have a big PLM app that does this. Now, I'm sorry, it's a little different. For PLM, a lot of the PLM tools do the creation of these tools. But again, here's what the volunteers told me. When we started the session with them about what do you want in the app, they've almost all of them said, look, we've reviewed it, all these tools out there. And the majority of them, and this is kind of the PLM highly engineered tools, the demos start with, first you do the DFMEA. And they'd raise their hand and say, we don't do DFMEAs. And then they said, well, get the DFMEA from your customer. And they just laughed out loud. And they go, our customers don't give us DFMEAs. So what they stumbled across, and again, from an engineering standpoint, it makes sense. But as soon as we get down into part manufacturing, it's difficult. But always go out and talk to the people, understand the process before you look at it. This is just a comment. Custom forms is great to have internal form and then switch to customers that they like that. Is the hosted version secure, ITAR compliant? Yes, it's in the Microsoft Azure community. Microsoft has spent billions of dollars on security with all the things you'd expect on penetration testing and viruses, everything. So yes, very, very compliant. All right, I think that's all the questions. Appreciate you taking the time to look at this. Again, we'd be happy to do a demo with your team and like to hear from you soon. Thank you.